Welcome to the Child Care Director's Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you are a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Sacoccio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Child Care Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it's your girl Erica here, and you are tuned in to the Child Care Director's Chair podcast. I got a question for you. What happens when a teacher stops surviving in silence and starts using her voice? What happens when exhaustion turns into purpose and when frustration becomes advocacy? And when one conversation changes the direction of someone's life? Today's guest is not just an educator, she is a movement in the making. A year ago, Ruth Baugh was carrying the emotional weight that so many educators across the country are silently battling every day. The pressure, the burnout, the emotion of giving everything to everyone and having very little poured back into them. But then something happened. One unexpected connection, one answered call, one decision to step into a room full of leaders, visionaries, and people committed to grow. And today, Ruth is building a platform using her voice, advocating for teacher mental health and helping educators realize they are not alone. This conversation is bigger than education. This is about leadership. It's about courage. This is about what happens when you finally find the right community. So, welcome to the podcast, Ruth.
Hello. Thank you for squeezing me in today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So, Ruth, before we dive into it, I want to just take people back to how we even connected, because honestly, this is one of those moments that reminds you of how powerful alignment can be. And at a time when you were doing what so many passionate educators are doing, pouring into everyone else while quietly carrying the weight on yourself, like, should I stay? Should I go? You have passion, you have heart, and a message, but you were still trying to figure out where your voice fit in and how to fully step into it. So when we connected, I saw somebody who had that story that needed to be heard, not just for herself, but for teachers everywhere who were silently struggling. And so I said, "Girl, come hop on the podcast." We started talking. You said, "All right, let's do it." You answered that call, and that one decision led you to our community. So I think our Trailblazers community is just one where people collaborate, grow, challenge one another, and build bigger movements beyond themselves, probably bigger than they would have thought if they would just, stayed in their little silos. So since then, I have watched your confidence grow, your platform expand, and your message become clearer and more powerful than ever before. You didn't just join a group, you stepped into your purpose. So I think it was fate that you were supposed to be there in New Jersey talking. Was that your very first session that you ever spoke?
That was my very first session. And I think for me, I just was, you, as you know, the doubt was very heavy. And just not thinking that me being in a classroom with not a lot of accolades would have a lot to offer, to a platform of people. But that was my first time speaking at a conference. Yes.
Okay. So where were you at that point? Where were you emotionally and professionally a year ago?
Um, Emotionally, professionally, I was checked out, because that September we had just got our new curriculum, and just the presentation of things just kind of had me just in like a sticky spot, because I was like, man, I was like, I really love what I do, and I take pride in coming and being different and wowing my families and wowing the kids. So it was just like just the presentation of our new curriculum and our new direction that we were going in just kind of took the wind out of my sail. But I knew I committed to fulfilling a full year contract, and I was like, man, but I love what I do. but I don't know how much longer am I going to do it. And so when I got the confirmation that I was going to present, I was like, okay, cool. I this, I love this field. I know I love it. And it's not something that you just wake up like, hey, I'm going to teach preschoolers today. But I just still, I was like, okay, you got to find that second win to get you through this year. So I think when we got to the conference, and just seeing different people and just seeing so many people wishing they had the resources and just the different tools, I was like, man, okay, I want to help other educators. I want, if I could at least prevent one educator from throwing in the towel, um, then I'm gonna try. Because if I had not met you, or if I had not met my former director, I say this all the time, I probably would have been looking for a work from home job and just probably revisiting this thing, maybe a couple years down the line, and trying to navigate how can I do it my way, and not lose the passion at the same time. But meeting you, it was one of those things when we sat down, I was like, man, she really has a genuine heart for education. And that's almost when people kind of get to the top and start to move up, they say it, and you're like, not gonna lie, like the educator in us, we filter people out quickly because we're like, okay, everybody says I used to be in the classroom. Um, I used to teach kindergarten. I used to do, and you're like, okay, sure. You know what I mean? And then you wait because it's kind of like a relationship where you're like, wait a minute, let me give you 90 days and see if you really mean this thing. That's how I am. Like, I give you 90 days to a year and see if that message is still authentic. And then I go from there. But it was like you said, when we sat down, we talked, like, you still have that active passion, even though you're not in the classroom, like, you still have that active passion for education, educators, and I was like, man, like she really means what she says. So that meant a lot to me. And that moment when we sat down, at that podcast and we were talking, and I was like, man, I was like, where's the next opportunity gonna come from? Because that day my session was not a lot of women. And I was like, well, I came, I spoke. I don't know if it resonated with anybody. And then I was like, okay, I get it. I was supposed to come here to meet Erica. And take it from there. So I was like, you know what? I say that all the time. I was like, listen, that day was my first moment. And I was like, I think signing up for that podcast, and thankfully not knowing that you carried so many things with you, because I probably would have talked myself out of it. Like, because I was like, oh, there goes her director. There goes my director. And I was like, no, her director works for her. Oh, we're in a different ball game. But I'm glad that you didn't lead with what you're doing and like who you are. Like, you really just led with your passion, and that was what made me not back down from connecting with you. Because I think had you came with, hey, I own centers, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I probably would have shied away from getting to know you. But I think the fact that you just led with your passion and not who you are and what you do, I think that is what draws so many of us in, because we wouldn't know all the things that you come with until we get to know you, because you don't lead with that. And I think that is what allows us to like love being trailblazers, because we're getting the person and not the accolades, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, this podcast, is I always say my mic is your mic. Like, it's not about me. It's about us. It's about our community. I think it's so important. And I think your story also resonated with me because I was one of those educators on the playground thinking, oh my God, am I gonna die here? Like, is this okay when we're sitting here thinking it like there's no other job I can think that you like really think you may die on your playground, but you're still there because you're worried about ratio. There is no other field like it, right? It's almost like a badge of honor to come in sick and tired, and it's crazy. Why
Right.
why do you think so many educators suffer silently and they don't really say much and they just keep kind of getting
I think I think the thing of it is um the tone is set way too heavy that we're here for the families. I think if we change that narrative, to yes, we're here from the families, but if our educators are not good and are not in a safe space or are not well themselves, um, we really have no families, and we really don't have an establishment to partner with. I think if we led with that more, then educators wouldn't beat themselves to the ground to be like, I gotta go to work, I gotta go to work. Because the reality of it is, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm not well, or my daughter is not well, the first thing I'm going to think about is what do I do because I have to go to work. Um, and I think luckily, our director that retired and our new director, they do set the tone of, okay, take care of you first. And then, the school will take care of itself. Like, hey, I found a sub, or hey, I'm trying to find a sub. Depending on the severity of the situation, they'll go, okay, we'll take care of it from here. And I think that us being women also too is another thing that makes it harder, where we do suffer in silence because we watched our mothers not complain. We watched our grandmothers not complain. We watched ourselves get the kids ready for school. We watched ourselves put ourselves last. So we're nurturers by nature. So we wake up to make sure everybody else is always good, because as long as they're good, we did our part. Right. So that's the narrative that we took into childcare, which is not good, because at the end of the day, we didn't make sure we were good, and now we have to go be a parental figure to 14 other kids, or 15 other kids, 16 other kids. But I think a lot of preschools, because they lead with the narrative that we're here for the families, I think educators feel like if they show up and say, hey, I'm not well today, hey, this is going on, that we've let the families down.
Yeah. I think one of the things that has changed me a lot in the last couple of years from having the podcast and getting to speak to teachers and directors at all different levels or stages of where they are. And a lot of times when I speak with directors who are on the older spectrum, they'll make this like general statement about how younger folks don't want to work. You I work with a lot of millennials, and then even the generation underneath that, where my daughter is. And my daughter said, "Mommy, I'm really proud of you. You're really smart, and you're a great leader, but I will never work the way that you do." And I went, "What do you mean?" And she would say, "Mom, but some days you run yourself into the ground. You answer phone calls you shouldn't answer." And and then my niece too, when we were looking at benefits for the school, she said, "Auntie, I would rather have an extra day off with pay than a pay increase. I'd rather have a few more vacation days." And I realized that, you know, there are generations now that value their time or money or their mental health, or not having to be sick to take a day. Probably will say, "I feel great today, and I'd like to cash in one of my flex days," right? You have to
Right.
Instagram, you gotta call it. You feel physically okay, but mentally, you gotta call, you gotta make a fake voice. "Oh, I not feel like." How about we can just call and say, "I feel great, and I wanna go to the beach."
Right.
Imagine
Right.
as a precedent. And I think some schools are really thinking of doing a 4-day work week. I know some have shifted to a 4-day work week to be more competitive in the market. And I think that that's a great idea too, which is one that me and Ants were kind of toying about for our center, is to do a 4-day work week so that you can just take a fun day, or you can make a day where I can make my appointments on this day without worrying about coverage and worrying
Right.
what if it's not approved, right? So I think, being preventative and proactive before we have so much of this burnout, I think is the new direction we should be going into, because we don't it's deeper than burnout. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's a mental health crisis at this point in education. I mean, you look on any social media account, there are teachers left and right, not just in early childhood, but public education, high school level. They're out. The teachers are out. Um, so what do you think school leaders and directors often misunderstand about teachers and where they're feeling right now?
I think I think also too, because directors don't have the resources to help them navigate their own mental health, and they are looking at deadlines, deadlines, deadlines. This needs to be happening. Licensing is coming. This family is unhappy. Payroll. I think because they are not able to also prioritize their own mental health, they can't figure out a way to navigate that through the staff. So and a lot of times they just don't, they were brought into that, right? Like they were brought into, hey, this is your salary, these are the expectations. once you show a positive way of executing that, all is well with the world. But then you have this director that went home and she has sleepless nights or he has sleepless nights because there's so much on their plate. Then we have, us coming in to be like, hey, do you have a second? There are a lot of things even for me, like I wanted to bring to my director's attention, but I'm mindful she has a new curriculum that she's doing. She has licensing on her heels. If there's a crack in the floor, they're coming back but I think she also feels guilty to take a mental health day. She has board meetings, and sometimes the board meetings may make her, a little bit more stressed out because more is on her plate. But I think if we set the tone with directors having their mental health day, not bringing work home, not working from home, just hey, here's a mental health day for me to regroup, for me to calibrate what coming into the next week looks like, or making sure I'm in a good mental space to focus and think clearly, then I could come back and bring that to the team. But I think because a lot of owners and a lot of schools are just deadline, 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 payroll, payroll. What's the stats looking like? What is this? Where we are, where we need to be. And that's what I think an owner said to me one time in the midst of my almost burnout. Um, Kids were running wild in the classroom. I had a whole system set. We had 4 new kids and it was picture day. And these new kids were not used to the routine. And she was like, how are we? Which is a very triggering word. And I said, it's just a bit overwhelming. And she was like, well, this is where we need to be. And she meant that as far as numbers wise. And she closed the door. And I think if we don't lead with numbers, right? Like this is where we need to be numbers wise. This is where we need to be financial wise. Like if we led with the core of, okay, are we prioritizing our staff? Are we making sure we have like a checklist of things to do? Yes, of course, on your end, I can't even imagine. But like payroll, different things, like I know that's all important. But like if we made sure like directors were able to be like, hey, how are you this week mentally? Are you good? Okay, you get a mental health day to focus on you and pour into you. A lot of directors will come back in with a fresh new mindset and be able to see and hear their staff a little bit differently and in a better way. So they can model that as well, because you can't model what you haven't experienced, to me.
Sure. I think too, for the directors to be aware too, like picture day is not new, right? That's not a new thing. We know that's an overload on the kids and the teachers, adding another teacher saying, we know it's picture day. And so to prevent chaos, we've added 2 teachers from 9 to 12 while the photo people are here. Just, being proactive. And I think one of the things that we've learned being in the group together, because I know when you first came in, you were very I don't say upset with your director, but you understand.
No, you can say upset. I was upset. We could say,
Were you upset?
say
I know
upset.
you were feeling a certain kind of way about administration in general. And I think, when you're in the Trailblazers, what's amazing about it is that you do have teachers and admin, all which are leaders, talking about real leadership issues and bringing different perspective and voice, which is why I love our group is so diverse in the people that are in that space, with one main goal in mind is what's best for the kids and what's best for the educators and what's best for our programs, right? And I think that's what's so great about our program is just having those different voices, People listen to our podcast might think like, well, that club is just for the directors, just for the
No.
it really isn't. I feel like one of my favorite parts has been having you and Becca and other teachers like you, their voices in mix. I think has been eye opening for owners and directors as well, just to really have real perspectives. So let me ask you this. What made you say yes to joining the Trailblazers Leadership Group?
Um, I think for me, I remember like something was like, pitch the idea of how you're feeling to Erica, right? Because like at that time, I knew, like I knew I had a talent and I knew I had a gift and I knew I had a passion, right? Because I was like, I do love this. I tell this story all the time. I was like, I was supposed to go be a mortician somewhere. I was not supposed to be in childcare. I don't even know. But I was like, you ended up here for a reason. That's not something to take lightly, you know? And at that time, I was like, man, I was like, I love being different. Obviously, my hair is all different colors, but I love being different. I love having fun. I love families being happy. I was like, that's not something you just wake up with, you know what I mean? And I remember saying, "Hey, Erica, these are the things I feel like I want to do. I don't know anybody around me that's doing it. I don't remember. I think I remember that. So I was like, this is the lane I want to be in. I don't even know if this lane exists." Like I remember saying that, and I was like, "Am I crazy for thinking?" Like I listed all the things because I was like, "I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this," but nobody around me was doing that. And I think um people would give you like breadcrumbs of things to try. And that's the thing with educators too. It's like they give you breadcrumbs of things to try, some of them, because they don't want you to get the full loaf and then with the fear that you're going to leave. Um,
Give you
they do.
opportunity.
Yeah, so it's like, here's a breadcrumb idea. Here's a breadcrumb idea. So it was like when I presented it to you of all the things I wanted to do, and you're like, hey, no, this lane does exist. And there's a group of us that are doing it. And I was like, what? And when I got on board, I was like, okay, cool. Like it didn't feel forced. It felt natural. Of course, some weeks, you know what I mean? Like we're tired, we're all dragging ourselves in. But once we get there, it just feels so worth it to sit down and to be like, okay, cool, I can vent here, I can get advice, I can learn how to like realistically, I will say, and I think I've said this to you before, I was like joining the Trailblazers has reduced my anger so much. Um, because I really didn't know how I was gonna get through this school year because I was like, it was like the curriculum was introduced to us in August. I had a new teacher. I had to teach her, and I had to still model and not put my feelings out there because I understand, how you feel. Your teachers will pick up on that. You know what I mean? The energy that you send out, they're gonna pick up on that. So I had to lead her with a place of being like, okay, this is what we do in the classroom. And I didn't want the passion and the fun in me to die, but I was very, very angry. But coming into the Trailblazers, I was like, okay, cool. Erica's not going to only take my side, she's going to be fair. And she is also going to make sure that educators feel heard because sometimes you do get in spaces where directors are just like, this is our group, the educators are beneath us. We have to go, you know what I mean? Like there's a chain of command. Um, they have to hear from us. We don't have to hear from them. And I think you did a great balance of like sometimes when you put us in breakout groups, there's a director in there, there's an educator, there's an owner, and there's an educator. And you've always set the tone where we need to hear the educators, but we also need to hear the owners. We need to hear payroll. We need to hear about call outs. We need to hear about accountability. So I think in those groups, you don't get time to be in your feelings and be like, well, I feel like, you know what I mean? This is not right and whatever. So owners have to hear us. And sometimes it's so beneficial because we've been in breakout session where directors and owners had a mindset and I'm able to be like, well, hey, this is how it feels on this side. And the gears go and they listen. So I think in the Trailblazers, you did a really great job of giving us that balance to hear from each other and respect where the other person is coming from, whether you own a daycare or you own a preschool or you're in the classroom. Like you've always set the tone of this is why I appreciate having educators in our group and having owners because I think as time progresses, directors only meet with directors, owners meet with owners, right? And then they wonder why there's a disconnect when you come into a classroom. Why I don't want to hear what you have to say because you haven't been in here with 14 and 15, 3 and 2 year olds. So how can you model when you sat with a bunch of directors that have sat at a desk all day and they may have visited a classroom once or twice a week or a month. And then they're telling me, hey, this is just a 3 year old. So there is that bias where it's like, okay, show me how I can be better by associating yourself with more people that are like me so you can hear what I'm going through. So I think that's what I love about the Trailblazers is that you've always made it where you didn't separate the owners and the directors and the teachers and educators. You've always mingled us all together.
Yeah. How would you say your confidence changed over the last year?
It has changed. Man, I don't even know if there's a percentage to put on it or a scale. And for real, because I always had confidence, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I've always talked myself out of it. For one, because I know I'm different. I know I carry myself differently. Um, so I think for me, I just always felt like I had to prove myself because I'm not your average preschool teacher. For one, I don't look like your average preschool teacher. Um, but I think my confidence has definitely stepped up to like maybe like 1,000 different notches because I can I can look how I want to look, present how I want to present, and also know that there's an audience out there that's willing to hear me and look past all the other things and be like, man, this is a girl that's in the classroom that's really passionate. And just to have people like Ray and Annette and Becca like love on you and support you. It's kind of like unheard of because it was like we did not leave that room. We sat in each other's sessions for the loyalty. Like, listen, we cannot go anywhere else because Annette is up, and Ray is up next, and Ruth is up. We did not leave that room, and they modeled recording each. We recorded each other's sessions, and they asked for testimonials, and they shot a testimonial right back. And I was not used to that because I had never had somebody be like, "Hey, encourage me, and I'll encourage you." Because for one, women, we do not do that. we we do not encourage each other. And on top of that too, a lot of times women of color, when we get into the same space, we're very intimidated about building each other up. That's something that I will call out amongst us for a while is that for us to be women of color, we don't ever say to each other, "Hey, we're in this space, we got to win." And then women on top of that, we never say, "Hey, this is your moment. You go shine. You got this." So I think in that moment, and I even said it to my daughter, I was like, man, I said, as you do your vending events, I said, have people give testimonials. So it's like one of those things where when Ray and Annette did that for me and Rashawn and all of them, it was like, it just kind of threw me back to be like, wow, this is what it's supposed to be like. We are supposed to like empower each other. So it the Trailblazer group, man, it has just made you feel like you got a secret weapon. Like no matter what you go through during the week or whoever you want to fight, you're like, hey, I must be with my girls on Wednesday or the Trailblazer group. And like, like I don't need this. I got a leadership group I'm going to. But it kind of has become like our secret weapon where no matter what we're going through, we can come in that room and unpack it and leave with something else where now we feel equipped, to go back to our different spaces, with new tools. And I think for me, being in the Trailblazer group, like I said, it has just changed my mindset because I was thinking that this new curriculum was going to stifle my passion and stifle my dream. But now I understand that I could give 100% to the school, but I can also pave my own way. And my voice is not going to be stifled because this is their vision, but I could still pour into my own vision. Even though the RPS, you send them like strawberries, like here, 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 you send them. But I do understand like I can create my own lane now and I don't have to feel like being at my job is the only way for me to see my dream come to life. Like I can pour into my own self and my staff, my coworkers and my director, they can support me and they can pour into me. And if they choose not to, I still have another team that is willing to do the same.
Yeah,
So
I love that. And I feel like sometimes people think they have to choose and it's like I have to be all in or all out. But honestly, we can have both. We can
right.
own centers, we can work in centers, we can own centers, but we still can also have our own thing, our own vision, our own passion, our own things that we're working towards as a person. Um, to move ourselves as a professional. And I think that that's also important. And that conversation actually came up. I wasn't part of the conversation. The conversation came up in my circle of work as well. And I'm like, you are allowed to do both. I am allowed to be an owner, but I am also allowed to do things outside of that 9 to 5 for my own personal and professional growth. And so we are allowed to take that space. So I think that that's a great message. So Ruth, thank you so much for coming on today. And for those of you listening, I think what Ruth's story reminds us of today is that the right room can change your life. The right people can pull purpose out of you, and one decision to stop staying silent can create impact far beyond what you ever imagined. This is why the Trailblazers exist. It's not just to build businesses or brands, but build for leaders, voices, for movements and communities that create real. So if you're listening today and you know you were meant for more, this is your sign. If you're a leader ready to step into the next part of your leadership, if you're a teacher ready to take the reins, use your voice, or you're an early childhood educator or speaker ready to grow your platform nationally, this is your space. Trailblazers is a community of collaboration, growth, and leadership, visibility, and impact. Do not build your vision. Hey guys, get in the right room with the right people, everything changes. So until tomorrow, thank you for tuning in to Child Care Director Podcast.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Child Care Director's Chair, where we believe leaders aren't born, they're grown. If something sparked for you today, share it, shout it out, or pass it along to the next bold changemaker in childcare. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with Erica Sacoccio for more real talk leadership tools and a whole lot of inspiration. Until next time, lead with heart, grow with fire, and always remember, the chair is yours. Now own it.